February the 15th was a momentous day and one I will never forget. The protests rolled around the globe in sync with the sun. And in Britain, we woke up to hear that Australia had had its biggest demonstrations ever, including 500,000 in Sydney. And this set the pattern. Country after country recorded record-breaking demonstrations. Later estimates suggested 30 million people marched around the world. I suggest that it was probably more than that, given the sheer number of protests in cities, in towns, even in villages that we know about. In London, we had to organise 2 assembly points because there was going to be so many people there. And I remember a deeply emotional moment towards the start of the day when the 2 marches met at the statue of Eros in Piccadilly Circus in the West End of London. And that was the moment when we realised that something extraordinary had happened and that we were moving into new political territory, to be honest. And the demonstration ended up being a kind of human wave of people moving across the city from east to west. On the Monday after the demonstrations, the New York Times carried an article which I think expressed the historic nature of the day, saying that perhaps now there were once again 2 superpowers, the US on the one hand and world public opinion on the other. We didn't stop the war, but in Britain, certainly we came closer than we knew at the time to stopping the participation of our country. Tony Blair admitted in his memoirs that the sheer scale of opposition had led him to think that he was finished. And our Defence Secretary at the time, Jeff Hoon, phoned his opposite number, Donald Rumsfeld, in the US 8 days before the war, saying that Britain may well not be able to participate. What we did as well is to generate a majority anti-war feeling, not just in Britain, but right across Europe, in the US, in the heartlands of imperialism. And this is a major achievement and something that I think is extremely precious. And I think it's the reason why February the 15th continues to reverberate. Politicians and commentators and military figures on both sides of the Atlantic admit to this day that domestic public opinion is constraining their policy. It makes it very hard for them to put tens of thousands of boots on the ground in a foreign war, as they did in Iraq. And I think this is one of the factors that shaped post-Iraq imperial policy, with its emphasis on drone wars, air wars, secret operations, and war by proxy. I also think this is part of the significance of the West's Ukraine policy. They are so enthusiastic in the US and in Britain and in other countries. They're so enthusiastic about the escalation because it is a conflict that can be presented as a simple response to brutal Russian invasion. Now, the anti-war movement has stood against the Russian invasion, has called for Russian troops out from the start. But we have to be clear, once again, a Western war policy is being dressed up in the language of liberation, and that it's really about power projection, and that it's taking us to the brink of disaster. Once again, we need to be mobilizing against war internationally and at scale.